If you are constantly thinking about food, feel that you'll never stop eating if you honor mental hunger, and are worried that you'll quote-unquote swing to the other side and gain weight forever if you give in to your extreme hunger, you are in for a treat. My third book, How to Beat Extreme Hunger, Find Food Freedom Without Losing Control, is nearing publication and will soon be available for your consumption. Pun totally intended. I spent nearly a decade of my life trapped in the cage of restriction. From calorie counting to weighing food and tracking minutes exercised, my life revolved around rules and numbers. It wasn't until I committed to full recovery that a new beast was unleashed. Extreme hunger. Just like that, my hyper-controlled, perfect eating plan transformed into an insatiable hole of hunger. Thoughts about food tugged so hard that the only option was to eat until I felt physically sick. And yet, I still wanted to eat more food. If you resonate with this little story, you're not alone. Unlike most diet recovery books that just don't quite hit home, How to Beat Extreme Hunger takes a gender-inclusive, neurodiversity-affirming approach to making peace with food and your body. To be the first to hear when my Extreme Hunger book is published, be sure to get on the waitlist at livelabelfree.com/extreme hunger book. And now, let's get back to today's episode.
Gotta put one foot in front of the other, and you'll be around the corner soon.
Welcome to Live Label Free, the podcast, where you'll learn to let go of limiting labels and embrace your unique brain. As my mom says so beautifully in her song, which is why on this podcast, you'll learn the scientific links between neurodiversity and eating disorders, giving you a deeper understanding of how you can face your fears and become truly free. Together, you and me, we will keep putting
One foot in front of the other.
Hello, and welcome back to the Live Label Free podcast. I'm your host, Livia Sarah, and today I'm speaking with my sister from another mister, Victoria Kleinsman. After spending over 20 years battling eating disorders and being petrified of weight gain, Victoria empathizes with the challenges of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating. Now living in food freedom and self-love, she coaches women on their journey to complete recovery from eating disorders through her signature Real Recovery Roadmap approach. Victoria is the trusted body image authority for the Independent newspaper and LBC, and is on the verge of publishing her debut book, which I would love to talk about more in a moment because I'm all about the books. And Victoria is on a mission to lead millions back home to self-love and to a positive relationship with food and their bodies through coaching and her top-rated podcast, the Body Love Binge. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Victoria. I was telling you before, but I am so freaking excited, and that doesn't even begin to cover it, how excited I am to finally have you on. And I'm really curious, how is life back in the homeland in the Netherlands right now? Because when we first met, we were very close together.
I know, and why didn't we meet? Like, seriously, we missed out there big time.
Yeah, I think because we met in like November, and then with the holidays, and then I already moved in January, and it was like, yeah. But
next time
we will meet in a sunny, nice place.
We will. And thank you for having me on, by the way. I'm so excited for this. I love you dearly. We're very close, and I'm excited to share my wisdom with your amazing listeners. So thank you.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was just for everyone listening, I was telling Victoria that when we met, there was just this instant, energetic, loving, abundant connection. And being an autistic person, growing up, I had barely any friends because I could never connect to anyone. And looking back now, I see that the few people that I did connect to, I think that they were all autistic. But Victoria is not autistic, and she is one of the very, 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 very few people that I have ever met that I felt such a strong and deep and trusting connection with. So, yeah, just thank you, Victoria, for being you. And to start off here, I am someone who is just fascinated by the stories behind like titles and names and covers. Like whenever someone shares their book with me or their podcast, I'm like, what's behind this like name? And the Body Love Binge, it's so clever. And I'm sure that a lot of people who first see or hear that title like have some like thoughts about what it means, right? Kind of like with Live Label Free, even though a lot of people don't know like the full backstory behind it. So I'm really curious if you can start by sharing like what does the Body Love Binge mean, and what's kind of the story that got you to that name?
Oh, I love this question. And I'm a sucker for names too and the meanings behind things. And I
Yeah.
know your story. So Live
Yes.
Label Free is like perfect for you. And so that for me, binge eating was a big part of my eating disorder. And then to overcome binge eating, as well as the in-depth processes
Mhm.
through childhood stuff, the biggest thing for me was to actually fall in love with my body and accept my
Yes.
body and work on accepting the way I looked, having gained weight. So a play on the words with the body love binge. So like you're binging on body love, which is like a huge aspect to healing the eating disorder. That's where it came from. And I do kind of love the name.
I love it too. And I mean, it has the word love in there, which I think you and me both on that like energetic, abundance, healing level, like love conquers all. And I think even in terms of like eating disorders, that approach for me of like the eating disorder is the devil, the eating disorder is like has to be fought off. Like that never worked for me. What worked for me was like actually loving it, almost saying like, thank you so much that you like served a purpose. And now I love you so much that I'm gonna let you go and like let you live your own life kind of thing. And I thought that was really funny when with the whole what's her name, Keandra debacle, when you sent me that voice memo, I will never forget it. When you said you love Keandra so much, and you said, bear with me, Livia, you love her so much that you were like willing to help guide her on this life so that she can choose a path that is actually aligned and moral. So yeah, I mean that insight, love, again, like Martin Luther King, hate does not drive out hate, only love can do that. I love it.
And
I love it so much.
love is everything, right? We can only heal through love.
Yes.
And love doesn't always look like sunshine and rainbows
Yeah.
and nicey. Of course, like compassion is a huge aspect of that. But for you to love Keandra so much to not enable her to stay in that shit and to do what she was doing,
Yeah.
that's tough love. But it's actually, that's true love. Because when we enable ourselves to stay stuck in our patterns, when we enable other people to stay stuck in their patterns,
Yes.
because we don't want to upset them or confront them, that's not love. That's
Right.
enabling. That's
Yes.
people pleasing.
Right. That enabling is such an important word you bring up here, and I think especially in the context of eating disorders, I think a lot of an eating disorder, what it really is enabling the behaviors. That's what it is, and I think what recovery comes down to is saying, I love myself so much that I'm going to stop enabling this behavior. And I think when we take that responsibility and we can say, I'm enabling this. I'm not victim. I'm not a victim. I'm not suffering from this eating disorder, whatever we want to call it. I feel like the moment you make that switch of like, I'm choosing actively, like I wasn't chosen to be victimized, but I'm choosing to claim and fight for my freedom. That is true love and that is true power. So speaking of the body love binge and you saying, love and body love is everything. What does body love mean to you?
I love this question because when people first hear body love, they might jump to the conclusion that body love is going to the mirror, seeing your reflection, and loving what you physically see reflected back to you. That can be a part of body love, but that's superficial.
Yes.
Liking. That's not love, that's approving and liking.
Yes.
So, love, in the true sense of the word, unconditional love, is loving all of who you are, which of course includes your body. So it feels like, have you ever, so I think you will get this, Livia. Have you ever seen a photo of your mum and you just feel like love? You're just like, oh, that's my mum. And you just feel love to her.
Yes.
Yeah. That can be real for ourselves when we see a photo of ourselves, when we've done all the work, that we see a photo of ourselves and we just feel this sense of, oh, like I love me. It's not a case of my arm looks fat in that. Why do I look short in that? The judgments go and you're just left with unconditional love. I mean, we're still humans. We have opinions. We might prefer
Right.
us to look a different way, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter anymore. It's a lot deeper than approval, and it's gratitude as well. So being so grateful for what our bodies do for us and loving the skin we're in and actually embracing that and not hiding away. And that's freedom.
Yes. Love and freedom are, they're not one and the same, but they are deeply intertwined. And I love what you just brought us up with that picture of my mom. Because I've never seen it in that perspective. I think so often when we look at pictures of ourselves, we're like, oh gosh, my butt looks too big, my boobs are too big, my arm fat is hanging out, whatever, and we criticize and we label. And I think again, that's kind of where the labels come in. And a lot of these like self-help spiritual books are all about, when you stop labeling things and you see things for what they are without what society has plastered onto them, that's when the newness and the freshness and the love comes back. Because I mean, even simple things like a tree is not actually the label tree. It's an energy, it's an innate being that we cannot even begin to encompass with labels. And I think that's the same with our bodies. And it's really interesting that you said also, it's not that you don't have preferences or you need to like every aspect of it, but it's, that doesn't matter anymore. And I actually had a moment exactly like this yesterday. I was going on a walk in the beautiful Boston sunshine, and it was so nice out. And I was just like, I'm going to take a picture for Instagram. Be like, I love the sun. And I took the picture, and I noticed that I had what do you call that fat that's like between your,
Like here,
yes, like here,
yeah,
between your armpits, kind of, not between
yeah.
your, you know what I mean? And
Your
just like,
boob in your armpit, that
yeah.
squidgy crease thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've never liked that about my body. And like as a kid, I've always had that. And part of my eating disorder, like when that went away, I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I have achieved like bodily like angel stat, like so ridiculous thinking back. But it felt so like satisfying that I didn't have that. And now, I mean, I noticed that in the picture and I like noticed it and I had already posted the photo, but I was like, I couldn't care less. Like I
Mm.
could not care less. And that moment, I think that's so powerful about recovery is that you just have these moments after you recovered from an eating disorder where you realize how far you've come. And
Yeah.
it's like in those random moments that are so seemingly insignificant that make you realize like, wow, like I've grown so much. So yeah, I love that. So I am curious, I've listened to probably every podcast you've been on about your story, and I know about like the not all of the abuse, obviously, because I'm only getting one side of it. And I think I recently listened to Sabrina's podcast in which you shared how you went to Egypt and you had all these all these rashes on your body, and you still went for a run. And
Yep.
and then when I saw that story the other day of you ran a marathon with no training, I was like, probably from all the training in the previous years. But I do think it is helpful for the audience to get kind of like a backstory of who you are and kind of your journey from living in fear to living in love. I mean, what is kind of the Cliff Notes version of
Yes.
Victoria Kleinsman's life?
I love it. Cliff notes it is because I can go as deep or as brief as possible. So I'll be brief, then I'm sure you want to dive
Yes.
into
Yes.
bits along the way. So it started quite young for me, as I'm sure that's a common thing in eating
Mm-hmm.
disorders. It always starts as a child. So before the eating disorder behaviors arose, there was stuff like enmeshment with my mom. Like I was my mom's best friend as a child, which actually isn't okay for a child to be the parent's best friend. My she didn't know she was doing any of this, but she would say things that she thought were harmless, like, oh, don't cry. You make me sad when you cry. And from a child's perspective, you then take it on you that you don't want your mum to be upset. So you change all of who you are. You suppress
Yes.
your emotions. So there's a lot that was there first. I needed to be perfect, all of that.
Yeah.
And I started dieting at the age of 9 with my mum. So she would take me to Weight Watchers, not me because I needed to go, but she was like, oh, yeah, come with me. We do everything
Because you're
together.
my best friend. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And then, of course, from that young age at 9, everyone claps when everyone gets on the scales and loses weight.
Yep.
Everyone claps because the room full of people know everything about your weight. And then when someone gains weight, they're kind of like, oh, too bad, like try harder. And it's like a pity party. So
Right.
that was very clear. Like gaining weight is bad and losing weight is good. And my mum was doing it. And so I just copied. And so my mum gave me a set of points to count. I don't think it's points these days, but back then it was. But she didn't give me points to lose weight. She just gave me points so I could stay at my natural weight that I was at, but then do what she was doing and like copy her. Then my perfectionism took over and I wanted to do the best and high, overly achieve everything. And I know you know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
So then I would like eat under the points without telling her at first, because I'll be like, yes, like I've gone under my allowance.
Right.
And then the weight started to come off. And then before I knew it, I was the age of around 11, I got diagnosed with anorexia.
Oh, so we were the same age when we got diagnosed.
And I started puberty also at like 10, 11. I think, have you noticed that in your clients? Like puberty tends to come on at a really early age for those that develop eating disorders.
Honestly, it's very it varies a lot. Like I personally, my mom got her first period when she was like 15 or 16. So our family is generally like late. So I mean, when I was diagnosed with my eating disorder, I had not even showed a single armpit hair, like so to speak. And with my clients actually, I would say a majority of my clients, I don't know if this has anything to do with autism, but a majority of my clients actually, they are diagnosed with their eating disorders age 10, 11, when also they have not even started puberty. And I think for us, when we go into recovery and we learn like what it is to eat normally, we have no reference point of what that even means. Also, like in terms of our body, because we've never had like a body that was in puberty already. And I think for me, like I went through puberty when I was like 18, when I gained weight. And in my extreme hunger book, which you also read,
It
I
is
talk about
fucking epic, by the way. I wanted to message you the other day and be like, when is this going to be published? Because I need to send it to like 3 clients already.
I actually some other Harriet Fu emailed me too. Like I have a client that needs this.
Yes.
That makes me so happy. I'm 85% of the way done recording the audiobook. So I'm hoping, because it's May now, I want to bring it. I don't want to say a date because like people are gonna like tie me to that, but I want to bring it out on my my grandmother's birthday, which is in August. So let's see if that works. But yeah, with the puberty thing, I talk about how like going through extreme hunger, especially because the extreme hunger is like to get your body back. It's like hormonal balance too. It feels so scary because it feels like going through puberty, like all over again. So anyways, that's my answer to your question about the puberty and the clients. I think it just really varies depending on the individual.
Yeah. And I remember reading in your book, you didn't start that until a lot later.
Yeah.
But for me, because I was also being taught how to binge eat via my mom through all the dieting, she would diet all week, get weighed, and then binge all weekend, then start again on Monday. So that's what I was learning too. But then when the puberty hit, I did start my period. My mum was having to shave my armpits when I was like 10 because I was so embarrassed. I had a lot of shame around it. And I think it was partially all the childhood stuff, all the over perfectionism and overachieving stuff, plus my body changing, me getting attention as I was getting a woman's body, like my boobs were getting big. And I was a frigging child in my brain still. And I just couldn't cope. So all of that combined, restriction was the answer for me back then.
Yes, yes. And I think
And
from that puberty perspective, I do hear a lot of stories from the people who do start puberty really early that the eating disorder is almost like the solution and the answer because it, of course, prevents puberty from happening. And I think for me, in a lot of ways, when I did get my first period, I think it was almost 19, I was like, this fucking sucks. And I really missed my eating disorder at that moment. I was like, my eating disorder took me away from this. And even now, I mean, I have PMDD, which is like considered like a really severe form of PMS. So for like a week, every single month, I literally feel like a completely different person. I get so depressed. I wouldn't say I binge eat, but it's like I become like that extreme hunger version of myself all over again. And it is so frustrating because I gain like it's probably not even weight I'm gaining, but it's like a lot of like I get so bloated, like to the point where I was just telling you I look pregnant. And it's really frustrating. And every week that happens, there's this part of me that's like, my eating disorder solved this for me. But then I'm able to shift it back, kind of like with the armpit thing I was just telling you about like I notice it and then I can let it go and I just don't care. That's kind of what I have now. Like I think we all, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but I do sometimes have moments where I'm like, my eating disorder solved this for me, and where I will miss that for just a moment. But then I'm able to shift it right back to, yeah, but I mean, like, I'm so grateful for my body, like showing up for me, especially after the trauma I put it through, because I think I don't even use that word trauma lightly. I mean, restriction is trauma to the body.
yeah.
Everything you're telling me, this is trauma. And I think it's so important to validate that because when we can acknowledge that we've had trauma, well, then that's the first step to taking responsibility for healing from that trauma. So thank you for sharing that. And I can relate on many levels to a parent being a best friend because that was me and my dad, in a very toxic way, because he felt very responsible and honestly, this sounds awful, but was not cut out for the role of a father. He couldn't handle it. He was too overwhelmed. He was always complaining. He said, I can't do this. It's too much. Your mom is never home. Like, I have to do everything, even though he chose to be a stay-at-home dad, which is ironic. And I remember when my parents started fighting, he would always like team up with me in a way, like against my mom. And they would be having an argument, and he would like pull me into the room while they were arguing, and he would say, Livia, tell mama how it is. Like, tell her I'm right. Take my side. And looking like I was 11, 12, I was just like, oh my God, I felt seen. I felt loved. I felt, oh my God, someone actually needs me. So
Yes.
I loved it. But looking back now, I mean, I have conversations about it with my mom now, how she was, and we just say like that was so toxic. Like,
Mm.
like telling an 11-year, 12-year-old take your side and fight against the other parent? Ridiculous.
That's not okay. And little you had to go through a lot. And like you were saying, the eating disorder was at the beginning when you were saying whatever you fight, like it's not about fighting the eating disorder because then that makes it stronger. You're fighting, you're exhausted. But if you meet it with love, and there's a reason why eating disorders are created and begin in the first place, and like for you and for I, it was a way to cope with what we were going through back then.
Yeah.
So that's how it started for me, was like a way to cope. And the restriction then
Yes.
became really easy.
Yep.
I was in denial, of course, for a long time, like you were as well
Yeah.
from your book. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm in control of this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Leave me alone, go away, leave me to do my weird OCD
I'm just
behavior
healthy. Yeah.
stuff.
I'm just being
I'm just,
healthy.
you're just
Yeah.
jealous because you can't say no to stuff. Like
Yeah. Yes, that superiority feeling. Like I felt like I was on top of the world.
yeah, me too. And every time I bought any clothes, it would just fit because I was just skinny and there was like nothing, there was nothing really to get in the way of how clothing's fit. Now it's a
Right.
different story. I love my
Mhm.
curvy body though, but there's a difference. Like when you're really thin, and I'm not saying you have to be thin to have anorexia, by the way. For
Yes.
me, I was. Clothes just, I thought, fit better. I mean, looking back, I was like a skeleton. I think it's not nice to look at all now,
Yeah.
but you didn't see it at the time. You just completely deluded.
Oh, totally. I mean, well, my entire family jokes when they jokes in like not a funny way, but
Yeah.
that I looked like I looked like a little boy when I had anorexia because I mean, I was so emaciated. I mean, I didn't have any chest or anything, and my hair was like awful too. It was just like thinned out and like was not like thick female hair. And I just looked like a little emaciated boy that hadn't been fed and had been like stuffed in the closet. Like that's how I looked like. And it's funny because like at the time, I think that's another misconception about eating disorders, especially anorexia, is like that we don't I think body dysmorphia is part of it, but this idea that we have no idea what's going on. And like I knew that I wasn't healthy. Like I knew the way I looked. I knew like there's a reason people were staring at me. Like what the actual fuck? Why like why does she look like that? But at the same time I couldn't care less because I was
Yeah.
like it's more important to me right now that I feel in control than that I look just pretty honestly disgusting. Whether you're emaciated or not. I mean, if you're malnourished, if you have anorexia, if you're not eating enough, you look lifeless because
Yeah.
you are.
You are.
You
You
are.
are,
Yeah.
exactly. There's no life in you. You're merely surviving, not thriving. And then for me, so my anorexia morphed into binge eating, well, bulimia really. Well, the binge eating was always
Mhm.
compensated, so
Right.
it was bulimia. But how that happened was, thankfully, I loved my horse. I was very privileged to have a horse at the time, a pony, whatever you want to call it. I loved my horse more than I loved the eating disorder. So my mum would threaten me. So she would say, if you don't eat that, then we're selling the horse. And I knew she meant it. So I would sit there and I would scrape my nails down my face and I would cry and I would scream and I would hate everybody and everything. But I still had to eat the fucking food. And I had these horrible weight gain milkshakes every time I ate. So, now it doesn't bother me. But in anorexia recovery, when you've got these massive, big bodybuilding shakes with 1,000 calorie per shake, super fast
Yeah.
weight, like, do they want to like kill me or something?
Right, right. It's like a threat. It's a threat.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, such a threat. So
Me and the unsure, the unsure shakes.
oh my gosh, I was not happy, of course. I wasn't happy in the eating disorder. I wasn't happy
Yeah.
recovering. When I say recovering, I then kind of weight restored. I was outpatient, so I wasn't inpatient, I was
Mhm.
outpatient. So they would, well, of course, weigh me every week because that's a big deal these days to, unfortunately, to be weighed, make it all
Yeah.
about the weight. I had therapy and stuff, but I would honestly sit there with my arms folded and just nod my head or shake my head because I just didn't want to be there.
We're
I
so similar.
Literally, I was reading your book and I was like, oh my God, we're the same.
Yeah.
I also didn't feel heard and seen though. So maybe I could have gave the people helping, more of a chance, but I felt like they were very patronizing. They felt
Yeah.
sorry for me. There was nobody who kind of came down to my level, metaphorically speaking, and said, listen, I get it. This is what I went
Yes.
through. Like, this is the weird shit that I did. And I really understand how that probably could have changed everything for
Oh,
me.
well, I think that's why you and I are changing lives
Yes.
because that's exactly what we do. It
Yeah.
isn't I'm the coach, you're the client. It's we are two people together
Yeah.
creating safety and love together. Let's hold each other's hands and go on this journey together. There's
That's
no
me.
hierarchy. And I
Yeah.
think that's exactly in the medical model, not only eating disorders, but just in the world. It's all I know everything. I'm the doctor. I went to med school. Did you? No. So you don't know anything. And a lot of me, my personal experience, it was, I felt that hierarchy. I'm so sensitive, as are you. And I was like, and especially with, we're both manifestors, I'm a manifesting generator, but, I want to do what I want to do. And if you're going to tell me what to do, like, I'm exactly not going to do that thing. So if it
Exactly.
was like saying like, oh, you're the sick one, you don't know anything. Well, in my head, I'm like, I'm the sick one, I don't know anything. You fucking don't know anything.
Yes.
That's where my brain went. And that's kind of where the manipulation and the non-compliance and the treatment resistance came in. But I'm like, that wasn't me creating the problem. Like if they had been more compassionate and loving, again, that word, had come down to my level had actually been a human rather than the label that they were hiding behind in their nice white lab coat, that would have made all the difference.
Yeah. And also treating you like a respectable human. And I know the manipulation was there. So for me, one of my tricks, it was so fucked up, was, and sure you know all the tricks, but the day I knew I would to be weighed, it would be after school. So I would get up and not go for a wee for the entire day.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did. Drink loads of water,
Oh,
obviously hide water in my pockets and down my top, blah, 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 wear baggy jumpers, have myself get weighed at this stupid clinic place. And then if it was a tiny weight gain, they were like, yay, because it's all about your weight. Well done. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm just going to literally go and pee, which I haven't done for like 24 hours. I'm going to let go of all the bottles. And then thankfully, my eating disorder brain was like, yes, you've probably lost weight. So none of it helps, the help side of thing. It was only because my mum was brutal as fuck.
Yeah.
Kudos to her, to be fair, and threatened me with my horse that I, again, quote unquote, weight restored. And then it was easier to eat. Because of course, with actually nourishing myself, it was then easier to change the way my brain was thinking.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Livia, go on.
No, I was just gonna say about the brain thing. You're so right. I mean, a lot of people ask me, like, I was in Carolina House, like, what was different about Carolina House? But I always tell them nothing. Like, nothing was actually different about Carolina House than all the other treatment places I had been to. The difference was I actually wanted to get better this time. That was the difference.
Yes.
And that allowed me to gain weight. And when I gained weight, I was able to do more of the neural rewiring in a more productive way because my brain actually had matter that could be rewired rather than just like holding on to dear life to make sure my heart kept beating.
Exactly. So I got to that stage where I didn't then get support like you and I offer support now. That's why the anorexia then morphed straight into bulimia. So yes, I would look like I was eating, I say like a normal person, but I was eating like a person who was always on a diet, always watching what they were eating. Yeah. And then because my body was sick and tired of like starving and not being fully fed, the binges really started to come in full force. And then because of course the immediate shame, so much shame around the binging, which would always be done in secret, I would overcompensate the shit out of those binges as much as I could in any way I could. I was addictive to laxatives in a very dangerous way, addictive to exercise. Thank goodness, no matter how much I tried with a toothbrush, I could not make myself physically sick. Thank goodness.
Yeah, but I couldn't do it either. I couldn't do it. I did it one time in the clinic with the help of my fellow patients.
Yeah, I read that.
So ironic because they had no idea. But like after that one time, I was like, I felt like my head was gonna fucking fall off if I did that ever again. And when I've never talked about this before, but when I went through extreme hunger that first time, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I tried it with the toothbrush and I couldn't do it. And looking back, I'm so grateful that I couldn't do it because that would have spiraled into a really bad habit.
Absolutely. So I'm grateful I didn't, but then I soaked all the ways that the laxatives, I do not know how my bowels actually function on their own now, like a normal digestive system, because I was so afraid, like, because that was from the age of what? So the anorexia was around the age of 11. I was quote unquote weight restored around the age of 16. And then that morphed straight into bulimia until I was 30.
Wow.
So for another, 15 years, I was abusing laxatives for 15 years, like, I don't know how I still have knees left from the amount I was over exercising and doing all this in high intense 100 burpees to warm up, like 100.
Oh, same. Yeah, I heard you talk on a podcast that your HIIT workout was like an hour, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's my warm up. Like, what are you saying? We have the HIIT workout, and then it's time for strength training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's fucked up. That is not healthy. We do not do that shit now.
Right.
Just to make it clear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, totally. And I mean, what you just said, like, I have such a similar, like, I don't know how my bowels are functioning. I don't know how I have knees left. I have thought about that so much. I'm like, for more than half my life, I was traumatizing my body. I was torturing myself. And to think that, like, when you, like, honor your hunger and you treat your body with respect and you rest it, and then like looking at where we are now, and like even like brain wise, like sometimes my parents are like, when I my not my parents, my family, I was reading them like a bit of a new book I wrote, and it's very philosophical and deep. And one of my sisters said, like, I'm really surprised how your brain still works so good, even though you were malnourished for like a decade. And I was like,
Yeah.
thanks. But she was so right. And I think that goes to show how incredibly loving our body is for us. Like after everything we've put it through, it will heal when
Yeah.
we support that, when we give it the permission to heal, when we say, I love you, body, you're allowed to heal, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to let you rest and take your time. Your body's like, yay, I'm going to show up for you too. And it's actually remarkable how our bodies are so capable of healing.
It's amazing. And that was what really helped me get to body love, was the immense gratitude that I have and had looking back. What my body went through, it would try to warn me, it would sprain its ligaments 4 times on the same ankle. Yet I would still run with a limp and do burpees one-legged. Like it was an achievement. Like what?
Yeah.
And so now, I mean, my body's done its best, but I have a constant swollen lump on the left side of my ankle, and I had
Mhm.
a ultrasound or whatever you call it on it like last year. And the guy said, yeah, it's because you've got so much scar tissue because you've never allowed it to actually heal,
Wow. Yeah.
that it's always going to be a problem for you. And honestly, I love and respect that my body did its best to heal. And all this over exercising I was doing, it wasn't until I was 30 when I met, I'll tell you the love story now, when I met
Yay.
my now husband Wouter in Egypt. He's Dutch, like Livia is Dutch.
And he's
Well, you're half.
autistic, isn't he?
He's also on the spectrum, yeah. So I've learned a lot about that, which I'm sure we'll go into.
Yeah.
So I met him when I was fully in the bulimia, like at that point, because I'd gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. I was at the weight loss side of my eating disorder because, of course, I was on holiday. So then I like went doubled down on restriction, and I had the
Yep.
abs and all of that.
Creating the buffer.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. But the
Yeah.
thing is, I wouldn't eat on holiday though. So I was in an all-inclusive holiday in Egypt. The poor friend I went with, she lost 10 pounds in an all-inclusive holiday because she just copied kind of what I did. We would get up at 5 a.m., go for a 10K run outside of the resort, which you're not really supposed to do because it's Egypt. It's not nice. Like when you go out of the nice
Is it like
resorts,
dangerous?
it's dangerous because
Okay.
there's no one like parading or supporting or any police. So off we went because it wasn't long enough to go around the place where we were staying. I had to do 10K minimum every day. So every morning would
Yeah,
go out.
same. That was my routine
It
too.
was a rule
Yeah,
that
it was like
could not be broken.
it was like I don't care if I'm like tired. Nope, we're
Yeah,
going. Yeah,
we're going. And like
and all the mental energy like keeps you going.
yeah. And then we got bitten on these runs. We got bitten by mosquitoes that were really infected. So our whole legs had these massive, like, if you looked at us, you would think like we needed to be in quarantine. It was
Oh
that
my
bad. We
gosh.
had to have an injection because we had blood poisoning at the doctor's. And I was still running. And my friend was like, I can't get my trainers on because my feet are so swollen. I was like, fine, just shove them in. It's just shove them in and you'll be fine. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like it's almost when you think about it, we were totally like blind. We were totally blind.
Yeah.
We were totally brainwashed by these compulsions.
Yes.
Just like having, I mean, shoving your trainers in when your whole leg is freaking you have blood
That's so
poisoning.
mean. My poor body.
Clearly, but I mean, like at that point, it's so overly clear that you just are like blocked
Mm.
out and numbed out. You don't even see it anymore.
It was a
Otherwise,
rule.
it was
So
because there's no
it was
rationale involved anymore.
the rule was being done either way. I don't care if I've got one leg. I don't care if I'm shitting myself as I run. I'm running 10K
Right.
every morning. So we did that, and she just kind of copied me because I was always the leader in this like friendship.
So you were the new mom.
Unfortunately, exactly, because I just stepped into the role. Like I'd been a mum
Yeah.
my entire life to my mum,
Yeah.
and I just continued that role. So we would have no breakfast, no lunch, go to the gym at 3, and then I could binge eat in the evening. That's when people would look at me in this thin, lean, six-pack body and look at the piles of desserts that I was had. And they were like, oh, how do you eat so much and stay, and stay so slim? And I'm thinking, you just don't eat. You run 10K a day, you have an eating disorder, you have bulimia, you go to the gym and then you binge. Obviously, I didn't say that.
Right.
That's what was happening. And
Yes.
people were just only seeing the biceps and the abs and the toned physique, right? I don't even know how my body built muscle. I wasn't even eating frigging protein. It was just sugar and carbs, obviously, because my body was like starving.
Right.
So met Wouter on that holiday. And then long story short, we had amazing sexy time on the holiday. He then...
Now you had an eating disorder.
Well, yeah, actually, but honestly, this is another conversation. It was all faking stuff. It was all, how can I be of service in a really fucked up way? Like, how can I perform? That's the right word.
Yeah.
How do I need to perform to get him to like me?
Yes, I see.
It was not about my pleasure. It wasn't like I was feeling all the feels, and it was all made up, all performance, all fake. And, that's a lot to do with the eating disorder and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that happened. He then went home and he said, in his home was the Netherlands, I'm going to come to England every weekend to see you. And I was like, okay, all right, bro, don't believe you, like, bye. He did. Every Friday.
Wow.
He flew to England and he went back every Monday for 3.5 months. And then I just moved over here because I just thought, you know what, fuck it. I'm bored at work. What's the worst that can happen? Didn't really think about it because how was I supposed to keep up my eating disorder when I was over there? I didn't really think about it.
And in a relationship, I mean,
yes, living with someone, it's not like you can then have your own space and go home and all of that. So I moved over here. And I remember the first week I sat on the sofa and looked outside and I was like, what the fuck have I done? Like, what have I done? It was really hard to hide all the eating disorder behaviors and the laxatives and the not eating and then the binging. And I'd get angry at him when he would challenge, like, are you not going to have like some dinner or like some lunch?
Right.
Or, are you not going to eat something? Like, what?
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, okay. So, and then what happened, because I was away from home, couldn't speak the language, couldn't get a job actually, the binge eating got more frequent. The purging got less. I don't really know how or why that happened. It was just like I was just numbing myself then I needed the food, I needed it. But emotionally, it was just like, I'm just done and I'm just going to eat. And then I put a lot of weight on very quickly. I was at rock bottom. I remember cutting up some brownies, cutting my hand quite bad, dropping the knife, falling on the floor, having a panic attack, and just being like, I can't do this anymore. I hate myself. I hate my thoughts. I'm scared of my own thoughts. I'm scared of myself. I hate my body. I can't stop binge eating. I miss home. Everything just because I didn't want to ask for help because I thought it was weak. So I didn't share with my mum that I was struggling. I didn't share with my friend that I was struggling. I didn't share with my partner that I was struggling. I was keeping it all in on my shoulders, all within. And I just broke down and it all came out. And that's when I got help by a coach because I was just done with where I was at. And that's when I started my journey to where I am now and continuing to evolve and learn and better myself and all the things.
Yeah, I mean, just the language we speak, it's like, we're totally on the same level, especially, when you said rock bottom, I can't do this anymore. Those were the exact words I said on my rock bottom moment. And for me, it wasn't cutting up brownies, but it was seeing the terror in my sister's eyes that they were like actually like deathly afraid of me. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this cannot go on. And yeah, choosing to get help. And Carolina House was definitely like the tippy start of my journey because mentally it was actually very traumatizing because I still didn't know I was autistic. So it was a lot of, like, you're lying, you're not telling the truth. Like, you better be honest with us.
You have to sit in a different place. You said that they made that clear for you, that you wanted to sit in the same place, right?
Right.
They said you weren't allowed to because it was the eating disorder.
Because it was being inflexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually with the coaching too, when I got out of I think I was 19 or 20. There was someone who I was following on Instagram who like announced he was doing like an eating disorder recovery coaching program. And I knew this girl and girl woman. I just call everyone a girl. And she, like, I was following her story and she was recovered. And so I signed up for her program. And similar to you, like, for the first time, I was like, I actually feel like someone is not treating me like a sick little baby. Like, they're
Yeah.
actually treating me like a human because they were sharing their story. And, like, when they said they got it and they were in my shoes, like, they actually meant that. And that, just that feeling of feeling seen and validated for the first time in my struggles, I was like, I want to do this for other people. I want to be that person. So I think that's, beautiful how we've turned all of this mess into our messages and now are helping other people find love through that, kind of like that Stevie Wonder song of like, through love, we've given life, or whatever those lyrics are. Like, I feel like through love, we are giving other people life too. We are facilitating them on their journeys to life, which I feel like is almost the circle of life. Like, we come into the world to contribute. And I think there's so many books written about like what's the purpose of life. And I'm never going to claim I know this is the purpose of life, but I feel like for every single person, whatever that purpose is or looks like for you, I feel like there's an underlying foundation of contribution underneath that. You're giving something to the world. And because the giving, the receiving, that is the flow of life, right? That is the abundance. It's like I trust that I will receive because I trust that I have enough to give. Do you want to learn how to navigate eating disorder recovery as an autistic person? Well, then you are definitely going to want to listen to my free audio training, 3 Steps to Recovery from an Eating Disorder as an Autistic Person. In this training, I guide you through 3 simple steps to give you the clarity and confidence you need to use your autistic traits to your advantage in eating disorder recovery. It's like having a private coaching session with me on demand. Whether you believe being autistic is making recovery feel impossible, or confused about what's your eating disorder and what's your autism, or are just feeling stuck, this audio training is the resource for you. And the best part is, it's free $99. That's right, this 45-minute audio training is completely free, so you literally have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Listen now at livelabelfree.com/free-audio training. What was that again? That was livelabelfree.com/free-audio training. Okay, now can we get back to the episode? Absolutely. Okay, well, we just took a little break because me and Victoria had to discuss about how this podcast episode would end, because we could honestly talk for hours, and we really want to dive into eating unrestricted and how unrestricted eating is for life, because that is something that I think both of us did not get.
No.
We thought, once we eat unrestricted, we become weight restored, blah, blah, blah. Weight restored in quotes, of course, because I think you said this on a previous podcast that according to BMI, you were quote unquote obese.
I am quote unquote obese. Like if I put my figures into a BMI, it will come up red and it will say obese, lose weight. Here's all the ways you can lose weight. And I'm like, boring. Like I did it the other day for a joke to show my husband, like, look, how funny is this?
But even from a physical perspective, like when I look at you, I'm like, you're not like unhealthy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I wanted to say like you're not obese, but like obesity is like it's
There's
a
nothing
made up.
wrong.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
made up thing.
It is.
It's
It
like
is.
saying you're a pear. Like what? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make any
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, it does to the insurance and to the money. That's
Yeah.
how it makes sense.
But what I mean is like, okay, there are people like there's no denying that being like over like having excess body fat for your specific body type is not healthy, right? Like there is such thing as getting a heart attack because you have excess body weight. But like when I look at you, I'm like, you are not that person. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm like,
Yeah.
how can you be like quote unquote, how can you be receiving lose weight recommendations if you are actually like in the most optimal thriving place for your body? It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And even those that do carry extra body fat, there's a reason for that too. So sometimes
Right.
bodies just like to be bigger, but because I've healed, because I've been bigger than this, But since I've healed my relationship with food and my body naturally has found this happy set point weight. So obviously this is a big conversation, but people that are quote unquote overweight, it doesn't mean they are overweight, but if they are, when they learn how to listen to their emotions, tune into their body, all the things that we are all about, their body will find a healthy weight for them. So dieting is never the answer. That's the thing. Like dieting,
that's the point. That's the point. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the point. Yeah, because I mean, like, I think with the health at every size thing, I totally support that. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that, like, not everybody is healthy at every size. Like, if I gained 200 pounds, like, fat positivity, no, I would probably be at a very, very high risk for dropping dead from a heart attack. Like, there's no denying that. But like
then
you
the
said,
question would be, why have you gained 200 pounds? Like, what's going on? Like, talk to me, like, tell me, let me help you.
Right. Because I think in that moment, if it was like, why did you gain that weight? Like, why did you lose that weight? Right? It goes both ways. And when you, again, come back to love, like, let's nourish your body in a holistic way. Like, I feel like we wouldn't have this, like, quote unquote, obesity epidemic. And like, I mean, even the fact that people are saying like, oh, the junk food companies manipulate the food so that you'll overeat on them. I don't believe in that. Like, that is not a thing. Like, that is not a thing. But
I'm
anyways,
with you on that because, oh my God, we need to do a part 2. But I will say on this, those are the people have asked me that question a lot. Okay, well, what about the people that spend billions of dollars making certain foods addictive, quote unquote? I'm like, okay, let's pretend that that's true, which I don't think it is. We live in the world we live in. You've got 2 choices. Number 1, you can go and live on a desert island and have no shop and live off the land. Good luck with that. Then you're not around the environment. Number 2, you can restrict those foods or try to restrict, depending on what genetics you have and what eating disorder you resonate with. If you have the genetics for restriction, you will be in a restrictive eating disorder for the rest of your life. If you don't have the genetics for anorexia, you will end up binging on those foods anyway, because you can't restrict them to a certain degree. Or number 3, you can enjoy them because they're in the life that we live right now. You can listen to your body, you can nourish yourself with other stuff and actually live a joyful life and then eat them in a way that is right for you.
Yes. I mean, yeah, right, exactly. And I mean, this whole idea that like sugar is addictive. I mean, we don't see like people sitting in the corner on the street, like snorting freaking sugar. I'm like, if it was so addictive, like that's what people would be doing. And another important thing worth mentioning, which we'll talk about more in our unrestricted eating podcast, is like this idea of like, if like that food inherently is so addictive, like once your body reaches its happy place, like now I don't want to binge anymore. I don't want to eat an entire chocolate cake. That's because it's not my body that's addicted. My body just needed it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
amen, sister, to that one.
Yes. All right. Well, Victoria, I have one last question and then we'll save the rest for part 2 because, I mean, I just love talking to you so much. How have your hardships shaped you into the strong woman you are today?
Oh, how have my hardships shaped me into the strong woman I am today? Number 1, taking responsibility for where I was at. It's not my fault what I went through. What wasn't my fault. I got an eating disorder, had the abuse, etc. But it was and is my responsibility to do something about that. So taking full responsibility, I know you're all about this too. It shows you the empowerment that you have within each of us, that each of us have. And so from that place of responsibility and empowerment, and then creating the change you want, it enables me. When I got to where I am now, I was like, I need to share this with other people. Other people need to feel what I feel. I cannot keep this a secret. I need to be a coach or a therapist or something, because now I'm where I am now is indescribably incredible compared to the hellhole of anxiety that I used to constantly live in. So it's really shaped me. I love who I am, and I wouldn't be who I am without having gone through all of that. So as much as at the time I didn't want to experience what I was experiencing, I'm very grateful for everything I've been through, because it gives me a depth of knowledge and wisdom to help other people, to be of service, which, like you, Livia, I believe that's why we're all here, to give back.
I honestly, I just feel what everything you're saying so deeply in my core that words wouldn't even begin to describe how I feel. Because you were just such a radiating light of loving energy, and you were one of the most, oh my God, I'm gonna fucking start crying. You were one of the most amazing people I have ever met in my entire life, Victoria. And I am so grateful that we know each other and that through our hardships, we have now crossed paths, which would
Mm.
have never happened if well, we don't know that, of course, which probably would not have happened if it weren't for us having to go through all this. And like you say, the hardships are what enrich us. They give us depth. They give us stories to tell. And we didn't even get into your book, which we'll have to talk about in the next one too. See, we have way too much to talk about. But thankfully we have abundant time to talk about it. So now I want to come back to the Netherlands just to like visit you, because maybe
Yes,
I should come
please.
in the summer, because that's the only time I will ever go back there.
It's 25
Um,
today. I've been sat in the
yeah.
garden, so
Yeah, that's love. No, I mean the summers in the Netherlands are fantastic, but the
yeah,
winters, no, thank you.
yeah.
Um, so everyone stay tuned because a part 2 is coming, with the lovely Victoria. But before we wrap up, Victoria, where can everyone find you? Do you have anything that you want to share with our audience, any resources, so they can connect with you and receive more of your loving energy?
I do. Thank you for allowing me to share. I have a free support group where I actually coach for free. There's all the past coaching calls and workshops I've done recorded that you can access. I'm in there daily to support. It's a beautiful free group. It's away from social media. I didn't want it to be another Facebook group. There's nothing wrong with that, but for me, it's too distracting. So
I
it's
agree.
a private space.
Yeah.
So you can access that and all my social media from victoriakleinsman.com, and everything is on there. And come and say hi. If you enjoyed this episode, share share it
Yes.
on Instagram, tag us. Livia, it's been such a gift to be able to chat with you, of course, and to share my story with your audience. And we've
Yeah.
got so much to chat about. We've not even gone into autism and all of that. So
Right. Your book, Autism, Unrestricted Eating. I have like notes on my Google Docs, and it's all written in like funny Livia code that only I can understand. But it literally says, focus. How can you be healthy and get unrestricted for life? What is it like to have an autistic husband? Tell me about your book. I would love to know more. So I'll save
to
that
be
code for the next
continued.
episode.
Dot, dot, dot.
Yes, to be continued, love. But yes, thank you so much, Victoria, for listening. And thank you, Victoria, for
I'm
speaking.
listening.
I'm like already on to the next sentence. Thank you, Victoria, for coming on. Thank you, everyone who was listening, for listening. And we will catch you very soon. All right, bye-bye.
Love.
Just one foot in front of the other, and you'll see around the corners too.
This podcast has been recorded by your host, Liv. This podcast has been edited by my small but mighty Live Label Free team, and the beautiful song One Foot in Front of the Other that you are now listening to was written and recorded by my beautiful mom, Louise Alexandra. I am so grateful for my team and everyone who supports Live Label Free. Together, we are always stronger.